Hello everybody and welcome to the 7th video in our series of videos on the age of exploration. In the last video we looked at Queen Isabel of Castile, her husband Ferdinand of Aragon. We also looked at her life, some of the policies she enacted and the Reconquista. In today's video we'll be looking at the voyages of Christopher Columbus and some of the consequences of the two worlds on either side of the Atlantic coming into contact with each other. As always, we begin with our learning outcomes, so by the end of this presentation you should know the details of Columbus's first voyage to the Americas. You should know 3 places that Columbus found, and you should know 3 of the areas of exchange on the Columbian Exchange. Christopher Columbus was born in a city called Genoa, as you can see here on the map, in 1451, and he became an experienced sailor by sailing for as far north as Ireland and Iceland and along the west coast of Africa also. Columbus had been trying to get sponsorship for an expedition, believing that if he were to go west, that he would reach Japan or China. He estimated the distance was around 4,500 kilometers, and it turned out to be about 3 times that distance, which many of the top academics of the time knew. However, what they didn't know was that the landmass we know as America was right between Europe and Japan. So with Isabel and Ferdinand of Spain looking to compete with the Portuguese for the spice trade, they decided to take a chance and sponsored Columbus's voyage. So on the 3rd of August 1492, Christopher Columbus sailed the ocean blue, leaving the port of Palos here in Spain with 3 ships. The first ship, or the main ship, was a naw or a carrack called the Santa Maria. And he had 2 smaller ships known as the Nina and the Pinta, and these were captained by the Pinzon brothers. These were both caravels, and overall, between the 3 ships, he set sail with a crew of around 90 men. So he stopped first at the Canary Islands, as you can see circled here, which Spain had recently claimed, and they stopped there for a resupply of water and food in September. They set sail with the help of the trade winds at their back in September, and Columbus actually kept 2 logbooks. Logbooks are used to record the details of a voyage, things such as direction and distance. And one of the logbooks he kept had the actual distance travel, and another one he had with a shorter distance in this logbook, so that the sailors wouldn't be afraid that they had travelled too far and wouldn't be able to find their way back home. So on the 14th of October 1492, they spotted land and they landed at San Salvador in the Bahama Islands. They then explored Cuba and Hispaniola, as you can see here. The Santa Maria ran aground at Hispaniola, and with the help of the local Taino people, they built a wooden fort with the planks, and they called this wooden fort La Navidad, and 40 men stayed behind in Hispaniola. In January 1493, Columbus set sail for Spain, and he came back with gold, pineapples, parrots, and 6 native Tainos to show Isabel and Ferdinand. So Columbus was still convinced he had reached Asia, and he called the Tainos Indians. Columbus set sail again in September 1493, this time with 17 ships and 1,200 people to start a settlement in these new lands. He explored this place here, Jamaica, places like Puerto Rico, and he touched on the coast of South America. So in his initial agreement with Isabel and Ferdinand, Columbus was to be the governor of all the lands he discovered. But he was not a very good ruler, and during his 3rd voyage in 1498 he had to deal with the rebellion from unhappy Spaniards in Hispaniola. They said that he had tricked them into thinking that there was gold there. They had exploited and enslaved the local Taino people in their quest for gold, and Columbus had allowed it. He was arrested for gross mismanagement in 1500. However, he was freed and given back his riches by Ferdinand and Isabella, and they sponsored his final voyage in 1502, but never gave him back the title of governor. and Christopher Columbus died in 1504. The importance of the Columbus's expedition to the Americas, it cannot be overstated. The world Columbus belonged to and the one that he sailed had grown completely independently of one another. It really was two different worlds. The contact between these two different worlds changed both of them forever. In an event known as the Columbian Exchange, the good, the bad, and the ugly from both worlds mixed together, causing huge and in many ways disastrous changes. There are 5 main areas of the exchange, or 5 areas that really affected both worlds, and they are disease in animals, the trading of food, the trading of people, and the trading of ideas. The Europeans brought with them diseases such as smallpox and chickenpox and measles that the natives of America had no immunity to. It's impossible to know exactly how many died from the diseases, but some say as low as 50% of all the natives of the Americas died, while others say that there was as much as 90% of all the people who lived on the continents of America died from European diseases. Either way, whether it's 50% or 90%, the societies that thrived in this continent were now destroyed by these new diseases. Another aspect of the Columbian Exchange was the introduction of horses to the Americas and also pigs, who also brought many diseases that killed locals. The new world that Columbus encountered was full of food that Europeans had never seen before. Food like potatoes, tomatoes, maize, and lots more. These new calorie-rich sources of food were responsible for the population growth between the 1650s and the 1850s, where the world's population doubled. We'll be looking at that more when we're looking at the Industrial Revolution and the famine, and the consequences of that. The 4th area of exchange was people, which we will look at when we look at the Atlantic slave trade later. And finally, the 5th area of exchange was ideas. And while there is limited kind of publicized knowledge of the influence of the great cultures of America had on Europe, the native tribes of the Massachusetts and their culture and society had a big effect on some of the founding fathers of America. So that brings us to the end of our presentation. You should, by the end of this video, now know the details of Columbus's first voyage. So you should know that he set sail in 1492 from the port of Palos in October. He and his 3 ships, the Santa Maria, the Nina, and the Pinta, spotted land and discovered Hispaniola, Cuba, and San Salvador. You should also know 3 of the places that Columbus found. So as I mentioned, Hispaniola, San Salvador, Cuba, Jamaica, and the Bahamas. And finally, you should know 3 of the areas of exchange on the Columbian Exchange. So that means there was an exchange of diseases between the two new worlds, an exchange of animals, an exchange of food, people, and ideas. So thanks for watching. Hopefully you got something interesting from this video.